Today's conversation is one that so many of us, especially midlife mamas, need to hear. We're talking about parenting through stress, guilt, and the chaos of everyday life, and how to do it with more connection and more compassion. I'm joined by the incredible Wendy Snyder, a mom of two, certified parenting educator, and family life coach. She's the host of the Fresh Start Family Show and the founder of freshstartfamilyonline.com, where she helps parents ditch the yelling, the threats, and punishments for good. Wendy's work helps families experience deep shifts, building strong relationships while raising the next generation of empowered, emotionally healthy humans. We're going to walk away from this episode feeling seen, supported, and equipped with real tools that actually work. Today's conversation is real and it's honest, and I can't wait to dive in. So let's do so. Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Welcome, Wendy, to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on here because this is something we have talked about now for a year. We have met twice in person in real life, and we're like, we got to do this thing. And then we both get busy and it doesn't happen. So it's happening, and I'm so excited to have you on here and for you to share all of your juicy wisdom and something that I feel like as in a midlife woman, struggle with so much. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kate, for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. We're finally making this happen. We did it.
Yes. Busy women. This is what we're talking about. Letting go of some of the guilt of like, I should have done this, and just being like, it's happening in divine timing.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about parenting and stress and some of the realities around this, and maybe some tools and tips for us women who are feeling like we maybe are yelling, freaking out, losing our cool with our kids, and then feeling the guilt. I know that's my story. And, coming in hot and fresh here on day one of my cycle, the bleed started this morning. I could already feeling it. Well, it's like, don't ask me questions. Don't touch me. Like, it's just all the feelings are coming up. And then I know in a few days, it's going to be like all the guilt comes up because it's like, you know better. You know what you need. Like, why didn't you just chill out, right? And, you and I are both in the same program. I'm throwing so many ideas out here at once here, so I apologize for that. But like, it's all coming in at once here. You and I are both, I'm going to say, in love with Kate Northrup. We're both part of her program. And one thing that she talks about is every emotion only lasts 90 seconds if we allow it to pass through.
Yeah.
And for me, I like to hold on to that emotion for more than 90 seconds. I don't like to let it go. So maybe we can dive into all the things about parenting.
Oh, I love this conversation. I love your work, Kate. And parenting stress is an integral part of looking at the full pie chart, right? I mean, I know you do so much with hormones and cycle stuff and all the things. And like when you look at parenting, the strategies or the tactics or the tools that we inherited, right? Most of us work with a hand-me-down set of tools until we learn a different way. In my experience, it just adds so much stress to our plates when there's just a different way to do things that makes the challenges and the lows a little bit more doable. I will say a lot more doable, and especially ones that don't make you spike, right? Like don't go into this spiral of like, why does my life suck? Why are my kids horrible? Why am I the worst parent? Why does this have to be so hard? And the yelling and the threatening and the punishment and all the things that drive a stake between our kids and our relationship, and also just don't work long term to get the results that we want with human souls. So, yeah, powerful parenting teacher. And I just love chatting about what we can do to reduce stress levels in our home, because it works to increase great behavior. It works to increase cooperation. And it just feels so much better to be actually enjoying our life with our kids.
I love that. Enjoying our life with our kids. And
Yeah.
I think in the modern world, at least this is my experience, that it feels much different than perhaps what it felt like for my mother or for her mother, in the sense of, I think we're sold a different lifestyle in the current modern society for women, where
Yeah.
I don't think it should actually, I don't think as women we like should diminish our dreams either. Like, I know that I love being an entrepreneur. I know that I love doing the work that I do. I also know that I was deeply committed to the idea of having three children. Like, that was something that it was a non-negotiable, right? Even when talking with my husband about how many kids we would have, it was like three. I always knew it was going to be three.
Mm,
But I
so
also
cool.
know now, and especially in this climate, that it is overwhelming, and it feels like so much sometimes. And sometimes I feel like, is it the number three that threw me over the edge? Or is it social media that threw me over the edge? Or is it that I'm being told that I have to push career wise, which I still want to. Like, let's be honest, I want to do what I'm doing. But I think sometimes when it's like all the strategies that you get from business coaches and so forth, like you got to post on social media, you got to do this, you got to do that, and all these things that we got to do. And it's like we only have so much time in the day. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to unpack that a bit.
Yeah, so I actually see it a little bit differently. Of course, I'm with you 1,000,000,000% of like, oh my gosh, this lifestyle that we all normalize. Like it's pretty wild, right? Like especially if you're an entrepreneur. Oh my goodness, it feels like it's just nonstop, right? For sure. There is that, which definitely adds to our stress level. I did decide to kind of dissent from social media this year after spending tens of thousands of dollars to invest in learning how to grow Instagram from like a scaling perspective. So I feel like a new human now that I am done with social media for a while. I got a book coming out in 2026, so I might choose to hop back on then. But it does really, I believe, it is greatly affecting the nervous system of human beings, especially the youth. That's what always guides me in my decision making. If it's like killing the youth, why the hell are we even doing it? So, anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But what I look at when you say, hey, what we're doing feels very different than our moms and their moms, is I really see it as this. I think access to education and learning, the wealth of information we now have the ability to see. I think a lot of us have raised our awareness around things like emotional literacy, living a value driven a life that is in alignment with our own morals and our moral compass. And like we have access to a lot of information. And once you know that there's a different way, and that some of the things, like I think we're just becoming more savvy to realize that, say you scream at, yell, like you scream at or threaten, or you're like punishing your kid, and then they're like, I hate you, you suck. But yet you're like, I have to do this. Like the whole thing that comes along with like the classic way of parenting that we help parents switch out of. I think the awareness now of like, there's a different way and you don't have to do it this way. And there's like hope and the reality of that. I think it almost like they won't stay stuck. And so this creates this tension of like, uh-oh, like this is not what I want. It's not how I wanted the relationship to be with my kids. And I'm worried about my child. They're constantly pushing buttons. We're constantly fighting all the things that, again, fall in line with like the people that land in the classic style of parenting before they switch into a powerful parenting kind of system. And that creates a lot of stress in people until they find the time or make the time, as we would know, Kate, that they would to learn a different way. And I think back in the day, it was just kind of like that's what was done. And people didn't question it, right? Like you used fear and force. You You probably intimidated your kids into submission, and it just wasn't really questioned, and there wasn't a lot of access to information if someone was doing it differently through connection, through relationship, through grace-based discipline. And so everyone was just on the same page. Like you just that's what you did. And so there was kind of like a universal not, I mean, of course, there's so much goodness in past decades of how people parented, for sure. All of us, we grew up to be wonderful human beings, right? But there was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of disconnection. There's a lot of people who grow up and they don't really want to go home for Christmas, or their parents are not the first people they call when they have a problem, right? And so knowing now that this access to all this information, a lot of us are really diving into the personal development work and finding joy in that. But often parenting is on the last rung of that. And it takes a lot for someone to say, actually, I'm going to learn the difference between, like, let's say, punishment and compassionate discipline. It takes time, it takes investment, and that can be a big jump for people. So I see that. And then also, Kate, I think kids are becoming more savvy and they're realizing that the authoritarian rule is not like absolutely standard anymore. And so I think that they push back and question things even more than they have in the past, because again, it was like universal. The standard universal back, 50, 60 years ago was like, kids listen to mom, and then everybody gets disciplined by dad if you're in kind of that type of family. And there was definitely like this fear and hierarchy model set up, and that is dissolving, thank God. But kids are starting to become savvy to that, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. You can't just act with hypocrisy. You can't tell me to not hit my sister and then hit me. Like, I think kids are being born into a society where they're realizing that you can't just scream at me and freak out and tell me I suck and to stop, and then you go freak out and have an argument, with dad or whatever, or, just hypocrisy is becoming less acceptable than it was in the past. So that's my take on why it's different for us versus our past generations.
And I love that. I love that. I I think one of the big things that I know true to be for me, because I am a yeller. I
Yeah.
Before this career, when I first graduated from university, I was in social work and I worked a lot in domestic violence. So I had a very strong boundary around any kind of, let's just call it touch, right? Whether it be
Yeah.
hitting, whatever. Like I had really strong
Yeah.
boundaries around that. That was something that was never going to be in my home. But I'm a yeller, right? And I
Yeah.
know the emotional impact that yelling has. And there
Yeah.
is this deep guilt that resides in me. And I know it's something that I pick up from my heritage as well. Like my mother was a yeller.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that I know that I got from her.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
yeah, and there's so much guilt that I carry around how that is my way of coping. And one of the beautiful things, especially I would say in the last year, like my kids are fairly young still, like we're talking under 10.
Yeah.
And so I don't get a lot of pushback yet from them.
Oh,
So,
really?
not
Mine
yet.
came out of the womb with pushback. That's
Oh,
amazing. It doesn't
yes.
sound like you have a strong-willed kid then, Kate.
No, no. I
Good.
have
Happy for you. Good for you. Must be
no.
nice.
But I have ones that get anxiety now from it. And there's a part
Yeah.
of me that goes, did I cause this? Is this the result of me
Yeah.
not being able to regulate my own nervous system? And the answer is yes and no. Right? Like a
Right.
part of me
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, first I have to give myself a break in knowing that this desire for us to be perfect or for me to be perfect is
Mm,
unattainable, right?
yeah.
I can't be a perfect parent. That's not, and I don't think that's healthy for my kids to see me only as like the smiling wife in a apron cooking meals all the time and making fresh cookies. I think they need to see all versions of what can exist to give them permission to also be all versions of themselves.
It's true.
So, I let go of some of that guilt. But then I also, one thing that I've really discovered and really anchored in this last year is having conversations with my kids around the fact that me yelling actually isn't about you. It's about that I am anxious because I'm already starting to predict all the bad things that could potentially come out of this situation. And I'm so scared of how that's going to impact you that for whatever weird reason and messed up reason, my brain thinks that if I yell at you, it's going to protect you and keep you safe. And it's messed up. So,
Yeah.
I give you full permission to not listen to me yell and don't apologize, right? Like, so like we
Mm,
have these conversations where it's like, and I think this is where like I've done enough nervous system and self-regulation work to know that when I'm losing my cool, it's actually not about them. It's about me. And to be able to admit that and have a conversation with them and then them see me do the work afterwards.
yes.
But it doesn't mean that I'm still not impacting them by yelling at them. And I'm totally aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'll get there. But there is this thing that I think so many parents feel this deep inside their hearts of like, I'm destroying my kids. Like we hear the joke all the
Mm,
time. I have to start a savings
yeah.
account for my kids' therapy sessions, right? At some point in their life because of all the damage I'm doing, right? Like I think most of us as women and as parents, because we are so deeply connected to our children and we're connected to their nervous systems that
Yeah.
I feel like we do put a lot of blame on ourselves perpetually that we are destroying them because of our reactions. I don't know if you want to comment or give
Yeah.
tips around that.
I love that. And just thank you for being so authentic. Like, I think the best podcasts are like when we just be real and talk about it, right? Like, that's just really how I teach in my community. So I love that, Kate. Yeah, it took me 7 years to stop yelling. And I pretty much have stopped, even though Stella told me on Easter, she was like, "Stop yelling at me, Mom." And I was not screaming but I was, the tone and the aggression was still there. And so I got to do a makeup for her the next day. Makeups are what we do when we talk about that whole, like, hey, you don't deserve to be talked to like that. This is me. I'm working through this and we can work out this conflict in a different way, blah, blah, blah. But makeups are great. You take responsibility. You're right, Kate. Your kids learn so much by having parents who are willing to be humble, take responsibility, and then create an action plan to continue to stop the behavior, right? Like that's the big part of it that I think is really important, is that you do, if you want your kids, right, to truly respect you, if you want to change their narrative, you do want to also add, follow that up with, here's what I'm doing to get the support that I need to reduce and eventually one day eliminate the behavior. Because any behavior that causes suffering within our home, we don't just want to accept. We don't just want to be like, whatever, it's like, I get it. We get to be imperfect. And at the same time, we get to find the courage to make the change in our home. So yes, 7 years to stop yelling. I will still slam a door sometimes. So I think I just threw like a flosser. I know this sounds really silly, but like I'm still a thrower at some times, So those of us, if you grew up with any, like, talk about nervous system conditioning, if you grew up with any type of aggression, yelling, hitting, throwing, slamming doors, like puffing up, when mistakes were made, conflicts entered into your house of any type, then most people it's gonna take some time and they're gonna mimic that same behavior when they become adults. And most of us don't think that we're gonna do that, right? Like we don't go into parenting thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be a yeller and I'm not gonna, know what to do. So I'm just gonna go to that. But we do, and that's okay. Like that makes us human. And then our kids get to watch us, as you said, learn to be human and learn and, how to be human, to have bravery to admit that you have flaws, that you have imperfections, and that you're working to do things differently. And so, yeah, yelling is, I always tell my students, an act to feel powerful at the very same time we are claiming to feel powerless. And I think a lot of that comes down to just feeling scared that we're out of control, most of the time it comes back to that fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of not doing enough. So when I do my deeper work with my students, it quite usually, like I would say at least 90 to 95% of the time when we do the deep work, it comes back to feeling scared that you're not enough. And so to know what to do with scared is an important life skill that I love teaching students. Scared is like a healthy human emotion. Everybody feels it. It's not bad. And on the other side of the rainbow, so to speak, of when you allow yourself to fully feel scared, when you give it that attention, as you said, Kate teaches the 90-second rule. I think that has been accurate in my life. And also for me, sometimes it takes me 3 days. But like when you actually give it attention, when you allow it to be present and not judge it, on the other side of scared is bravery. Bravery and courage is what happens when you are scared and then you do something, right? Even though you feel scared. Nobody in the history of mankind has ever been able to own the feeling of bravery and courage and like it's one of the best feelings in the world. I just watched my daughter chase a D1 beach volleyball position here in America at a top 10 college. And she just got committed last 2 weeks ago. And it took her a year and a half. And it was like a needle in a haystack situation. And all of us, she hit it well because she's like my power kid and she's been raised with emotional literacy stuff. So she handled it quite well. But I think we were all scared it wasn't going to happen. We were terrified, right? But we knew what to do with the feeling of scared. And now, especially her, but mom and dad too, we get to sit in this bravery and courage feeling of she chased her dream. It was a needle in a haystack situation. And doggone it, that strong-willed kid got it. She got it. And she went for it. She chased it, even though she felt scared. And then you get to soak into that feeling of bravery and courage. And so anybody who's ever felt like they're failing, like welcome to motherhood, welcome to parenthood. And you get to do something about that. You just don't stop there. I think one of the reasons why I left my last church is because they would make jokes from stage about being whooped when they were a child. And I was like, it's not super funny to me. So I know that we joke about the college, like the therapy funds, and I've said that joke too before. And at the same time, let's do something about it. Let's get a therapist. Let's get a parenting coach. Let's do a deep session where we dive into what is actually underneath of this pattern that is causing suffering. And also, I think every child should have a therapist when they grow up. So I do think it's good, whether you think you're ruining your kids or not. Like therapy, I feel like should be a universal healthcare right for every single one of us. I don't know if it is in Canada, but it's not
No,
here in the
it's
US
not.
and it sucks.
I honestly, I think as a Canadian, it's one thing that makes me really infuriated because we do have our healthcare covered, but yet mental health is still out of pocket. And I'm like,
Really? So
I
interesting.
don't understand that mentality. Like, why would you take
Yeah.
care of the physical body but leave out like we're
Yeah.
still behind in there, but here's to hoping. Here's to hoping. I
Exactly.
I am blessed because I have some amazing friends in my life, and one of them is a child psychologist. So like, whenever I
Nice.
feel like I'm failing in life, she's the one that reminds me, like, no, actually, look at all these things that you are doing that some people don't do. So,
Yes.
but
Yeah, it's true.
it's true. One thing that really comes to mind listening to you talk, and this is a little bit of the principles that I kind of work with of how I bring my menstrual cycle into parenting, which I think this is like an untapped resource that, well, first of all, women aren't taught about their bodies and about their menstrual cycle.
Nope.
But when we finally understand our hormones and we understand how we can kind of play with them in order to really optimize our life, parenting does really change. It doesn't mean that I'm less of a screamer at this point. I'm
Yeah.
hopeful someday it's going to happen. But one thing that's been really beautiful for me as I've done this work and as I've created my programs and helped women understand cycle syncing around parenting is to really start to see like the different energy levels, that you have as an output at different phases of your
Yeah.
cycle, but also what you need for coping mechanisms. Like, why do I feel this way, right? Like starting to really identify with who we are. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about the nervous system, and I can't remember what they were talking about, but there was something that they said that always kind of stuck with me, which is like how we use astrology and all these things to kind of try to understand our personalities. But then there becomes a point when we just start to really embody it. And that's what I kind of sometimes feel like the cycle work is for me. So, like for me in
So
our
good.
households, we have this map on my wall of the full year, 2025, and it tells everyone in each month where I predict I'm going to be in my cycle. But we plan this for birthday parties. We plan this for like just like, well, today, day one, right? Like everybody knows where I'm at. So, and everybody knows what that
Amazing.
means, like what each color means. And, my son, he's hilarious. He's 5 years old, but he'll come up to me sometimes. He's like, you know what? I think I'm having a blue day, mom. I just can't be touched because blue days are my luteal days, right? And I was like,
I love
great,
that.
right? Like, so even though like perhaps my behavior or my reaction, I wouldn't say my behavior has changed. My reaction under stress has not changed. my kids also do see that we are multi-feeling people and that we have a
Yeah.
variety. And we sometimes just have to declare what it is that we're feeling and ask for what we need. And for him that day, it was like, please don't touch me because I think I'm having a blue day. And I was like, cool. Like,
I love that, Kate. I
let's,
cannot wait to get you on my podcast so we can talk about all that because I'm sure Family Show listeners are going to love you. It's going to be such a good conversation. But yeah, that's
but
great. It like helps everyone bring in compassion. You
yeah,
know, it's like you're probably going to be, I would guess, me too, more of the reactive mom during that phase than you are the other weeks, right? And
yes.
so what a gift. Yeah. I'm
But even to
excited for,
label it, like even to
yeah.
label it, like yesterday I was a hot mess because I had some deadlines, even though it was a Sunday and I get everybody's home.
Yeah.
And five people in a house when the weather's crappy is a lot of energy. And I just kept
Yes.
saying to everybody, last day of my blue day before red one starts, you guys, I can't handle sound. I can't handle noise. Like we have three different levels, pick a different level. It
Mm.
was just like, but I was able to call it, right? And so,
And
was
ask
I
for what you
perfect?
need. Yeah.
Exactly. And I wasn't perfect yesterday. I did snap
Yeah.
a few times,
Yeah.
but it was like there was boundaries. People knew the boundaries, right? And so I think that there is this, I don't know if it's maybe just because I am a perfectionist that I feel it so much, or if it is something that's really out there in the world for a lot of women, is of being this perfect parent, of that
Mm.
we really should be able to modulate our emotions. We really should be able to like put everybody first. And we leave the mom out of the equation so often and what she
Yeah.
needs.
I love the conversation around perfectionism and motherhood because, in my experience, perfectionism, and Brene Brown speaks to this a little bit too, but a lot, I should say. But perfectionism is actually related to shame.
Mhm.
So, sometimes we joke about it. We wear it like, oh, that's just who we are. We're perfectionists. Like we're trying to say we're type A, we're go-getters, right? And it's like we do get rewarded for some of it, right? Like one of the coaches' feedback for my daughter, we were like, oh, what, made you, and they said, because we could tell she was a go-getter, right? So we get the badge of honor from young age when we're like the type A, go-getter, do it well, show up great. But as we grow older, I think many of us start to realize that the perfectionism and shame is related, meaning shame really loves perfectionism because perfectionism will quiet shame. As long as you are doing everything right, you've got everything ticked off, you've stayed patient, you haven't yelled, you got everyone to bed on time, like blah, blah, blah. And so then it's like, we are good enough, right? But as soon as, like, for many of us, especially if we grew up with the autocratic model where when we made a mistake, we were nailed for it, we were reamed, we were lectured, we were shamed, we were sometimes punished, hit, harmed. When we make a mistake as an adult or when we fall short, so to speak, of our expectations, then all of a sudden we not just look at it from an angle of like, oh, I wonder what I could do differently tomorrow or blah, blah, blah. We go to shame. Like, what is wrong with me? Right. Like that is one of the most memorable phrases from my childhood growing up. My mom grew up Irish Catholic, and it was just everything was what like shame on you. And I do laugh because I still go home. My mom's like 76 now, and she still says it. Like my dad, last time I was home in January, he went to take the trash down. We live on like this farm basically in Maryland, the house I grew up in. And he went to take the trash down. He's walking down the driveway and my mom goes over the trash can and she's like, damn it. She's like, shame on you, George. You didn't put the liner back in, he had taken the trash and he didn't put the liner in before he walked it down. And she's still like saying to her husband they've been married 55 years. They're adorable and they bicker all the time. But she's like, shame on you. She says it to the dog. Like it is literally baked into my DNA, not really my conditioning DNA. And it wasn't until like 6 years ago that I realized like, holy smoke, I have so much shame to unwind because when I was falling short of my expectations or what I thought I should be as a mother, I went to not like what I teach and what I now sit in, which is like, okay, how am I going to change this? Like, I don't have to sit in suffering anymore. I don't have to live this way. And what am I going to learn from today that I can take into tomorrow? What's the root causes of my yelling or my grabbing a wrist too tight? I've written articles that are very vulnerable before. But I would go to that was the inside voice was really like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Everything came back to that once I really unpacked it. And so that's been such a joy to go through that process myself of realizing that shame is very different than guilt, right? Guilt is like, oh, I said I was going to get that project done. Let's say for like, we're podcasters, right? Like, so say we have a podcast editor and we're like, well, we're going to get it done by Monday, the 15th, and then we don't, and it gets turned in on the 16th. And now, that's going to cause like someone to not like have their deadline be short or whatever. Guilt is like, darn it, that was a mistake. Like I looked at my behavior. Like I didn't give myself enough time. I'm going to learn from it. And next time I'm going to make a different decision. So I get that turned in time. Shame goes to, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm the worst boss. I'm the worst entrepreneur. Like, I don't even know why I do this job. I should throw in the towel because I'm literally the worst. I'm so stressed out. And then we go to blame, right? Shame often lives with blame. So if we are good at shaming ourselves, then we're usually good at blaming. So we're going to start pointing fingers, and then you just end up living in this victim mindset, and it just sucks. So it's like for those of us who are looking at ourselves and seeing that we have perfectionist tendencies, I always see it as just an invitation to start realizing that, yeah, it feels really good when we hit the nail on the head. It does. And what can we do to still get to a place where we feel good about ourselves, even when we make a mistake or we don't get the straight A on the project? And that's a beautiful journey. And if you step into that really with like gusto and hope, it's been really fun for me. I'm one of those weird people who loves this journey of personal development and healing from things, but it just is such a beautiful way to live once you really shed shame out of your life.
That's a big one. That's a big one. And I think when like talking about shame and just listening to you, one thought that keeps coming into my head right now is how I am a perfectionist. My husband is not. Like I am very much go, 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 like high achiever. And my husband's like, let's just take it easy. Like he's
Mm.
he's the
The yin
turtle in
and
the
the yang.
relationship, and I love it. But sometimes, oh my gosh, it gets to me. But my tendencies of being a perfectionist also put so much stress on him as a parent. And he'll often say, can we
Yeah.
just be normal parents, not perfect parents, right? Like because there is this idea of like, for me, a lot of times that need to be perfect is so that way I can eliminate all the bad, right? Like I can eliminate suffering for my kids. And the reality is, and this is one thing I really do appreciate about him, is that he grounds me in that you cannot eliminate the suffering, right? So like,
Yeah.
can you just stop stressing me out and the kids out? And it's so true. When we
Yeah.
become perfectionist parents, it doesn't just affect our kids, it does affect our relationship as well, because we
It's
then
true.
also, like for me at least, I get resentful that I don't have a partner who can be as perfect as me, right? Like it's an
Yeah.
unrealistic expectation to put on anyone. And I would hate someone to put it on me, but yet it's very easy for me to want to put it on him of like, my life would
Enter
be
in
easier.
hypocrisy. Enter in hypocrisy, right? Like when we are like in any of that tone of disgust of like, oh, you've got stuff to work on. We
Yeah.
often are really good at not seeing our own or like dismissing our own, but then like highlighting theirs, right? Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we've all been through that. It doesn't work well. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, but and my husband's similar. He is, well, I will say that I will start like 10 different projects and not finish them. I have like ADHD tendencies, even though the doctors are like, no, you're fine. I'm like, huh, okay. Well, I guess I'm just like super just all over the place, which I did watch. My mom was like that growing up. But like, I will start a bunch of stuff and not finish it. And that does drive him nuts. But for the most part, he is super chill. He's relaxed. He's like, able to focus on one thing at a time, instead of doing 10 things at once and like being in hyperdrive. And I think it's so cool how we often get placed with the yin and the yang type of thing, right? Like, and we can work to see the beauty in that. And when we're not, it's just such an invitation to look at ourselves first before we look at them.
Yeah, we used to always joke all the time that I helped light the fire when fire was actually really needed for him, and
Yeah.
he helped to like keep me rooted and grounded when I was spiraling. So we
Mm,
are
yeah,
attracted to the opposite sometimes, which can be really beautiful, but can also be really,
it's true.
really
Yeah.
like
Challenging too.
yes, challenging. Very that's a
Yes.
nice word to put it. Yes. So we're talking about stress, and we've kind of dove in a lot about like how stress kind of impacts us as a parent, like some of the guilt that we carry and why we might be stressed. What are some of your favorite tools? What are some of your favorite tips that you offer to parents or to women that are struggling with this right now of trying to balance their nervous system in
Yeah.
the chaos of being a parent?
Yeah. I'd say the two biggest areas that I think, help our students in our community reduce stress in their life is one, learning to become more responsive versus reactive, which is what we've talked about a lot, right? Like looking at our tendencies, what's our knee jerk. I'd say like the majority of the people in our community are the uppers, right? The yellers, grabbing wrist too tight, threats, punishments, like the hard heavy hammer and then later regret it. So we like looking at that and seeing, okay, where has my nervous system been conditioned to see misbehavior as dangerous? That's really it, right? Like, so that's
Mhm.
one side of the coin. And then the other side of the coin is, and really that's the top like pain point that we see and I can give some tips around here in a minute. But, and then the
I
second
really like that
thing,
you just said misbehavior equals dangerous. Like that to me was like, that's
yeah.
exactly what it is.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to
I
dig
was,
into that in a second.
okay.
But the other side is a lot of the students who we work with are blessed with a strong-willed kid because a lot of times those are the kids that bring you to your knees. Like you can kind of get away with some stuff with kind of the more chill kids, but if you've been blessed with a strong-willed child, you will literally like think at some point in your life, I should probably run away and just give up and hide and like move to like you literally like you might want to kill your kid at some point. I always joke it's like eat your young, like praying mantis eat their prey. I'm always like, if you have a strong-willed kid, there are times when you're like, maybe I should just eat my child. It's really freaking tough. And so we also do a lot of work around helping parents to change their paradigm around strong-willed kids and see them as a blessing versus a curse and really start to learn how to work with them because they will not be forced into submission. They just raise the red flag. They will not. And if you keep trying to make these kids submit, and in like my world, I work with a lot of parents who come out of like really toxic teachings a lot in the Christian church around breaking a child's will and like hurting and harming children in the name of God, calling it godly discipline. Like there's just a lot that goes on, especially with strong-willed kids, that is heartbreaking and like really is just like robs, kills, and destroys families. And so to work with those parents and just help them realize that they've got an opportunity. Those kids are often the ones that invite us the most into healing. So they're the ones that are going to push your buttons the most, and they're going to cause you like a tea bag that gets dipped in boiling water. You don't really know what the tea bag is until you put it in the boiling water. That's kind of the analogy for the strong-willed kid is they will show you who you are and where you need healing. And if you accept that invitation, it's absolutely life-changing. And that was my story. Like when Stella came out of the womb, she was this wild, strong-willed kid at 3. I realized like, oh my gosh, I need help. I am not fine. Like this is hell. This is misery. She's in timeouts 50 times a day. Nothing's working. No matter how much I threaten, spank, like she is a wild woman. There's got to be something wrong with her. And then I realized, oh, it's me. I'm part of the dance. She is my DNA. The apple doesn't fall far. And then I realized that she is this beautiful, gifted child who has an iron will. And that is exactly why she got to where she is now and is going to get this opportunity to be this D1 student or D1 athlete at a top 10 school. So those are kind of the two big areas. And so I can share a few tips with each. But the nervous system conditioning, you mentioned, Kate, that like the idea of why does misbehavior feel dangerous? It is because of our nervous system conditioning, right? You and I have been so blessed to learn from Kate Northrup over the last few years. And boy, oh boy, I'm sure you've brought so much of your learning into your community. So have I. It's just wild to see that those first 2 decades of our life, especially the first decade, our little nervous systems, they just like a sponge, they soak up the tone of our household around mistakes. So, 99.9% of us were not raised in a home where mistakes were seen as opportunities to learn. And when you made a mistake as a kid, if you rolled your eyes, if you talked back, if you hit your sister, if you didn't get good grades, if you didn't clean up your room, most of us did not have parents who came beside us to be firm and kind and also discipline us with compassion and grace and help us feel like we weren't broken and we weren't aliens and also be held responsible. Like that just wasn't, it was just fear and force and threats and yelling and punishment and a lot of bribery and rewards too, because anytime you have external controls in a family, there's always going to be a lot of carrot dangling to manipulate a kid into doing what you want. But so it makes sense why our nervous system constricts, because it was very hard to go through that as children. Like, being human means you're going to mess up. You're going to smack your sister. You're not going to like what a parent says. You're going to roll your eyes. You're going to have a time, if you're in a high achieving family, where God forbid you get a B or a C, right? Like it's going to happen. But like what we experienced as we were growing, our brains were growing, our nervous systems were developing, was that it actually was very unsafe, because we were met with either emotional, which is often the shame or the isolation. Disappointment was like a big one, like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? You're not living up to our standards. Or a lot of people were met with physical hurt and harm, right? Like when you make a mistake, you will get hit. A lot of people had religion brought into that, which was very, very confusing. And then, or again, I mentioned the isolation, which is just the worst for a child, to be put on an island and for love to be withheld when they are imperfect. So all of this we remember, and then we grow up and we become so surprised once we have our own kids and they spill their milk and we're screaming. And then we have a good night's rest and we wake up and we're like, oh, that actually wasn't that big of a deal. And those new lids I got for the sippy cups are like actually kind of sucky. Like, whoa, what happened there? It's because the nervous system is trying to keep us safe. And it's like, danger, danger, red alert, red alert. There is like a chance you're going to get hurt and harmed here if you don't like get this child, like fix it fast. And so we get to recondition our nervous systems to understand that that was just the way it was done for many, 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 many years, many centuries even. And now we have enough psychology, science, data, research to show us that it not only is ineffective long-term to get the results with human beings learning life skills, but it's detrimental to human souls. When you, like, again, Brene Brown's work, when you bring in shame and you combine pain, shame, disconnection with mistakes, it's a recipe for suffering in human beings. And so that's why it becomes so hard. And so over time, we learn misbehavior equals communication with this work. With trusted positive psychology, we realize that misbehavior equals communication. A lot of times kids are seeking to feel powerful. They're seeking to feel heard and understood. They're seeking to belong, feel valuable. And a lot of times when they misbehave, that's what's going on. They're not trying to push our buttons. They're not trying to get away with bloody murder. That was a term my mom used all the time. I'm like, it's such an odd term. They're just not trying to make our life miserable. They're not being selfish, entitled brats. They're just trying to get their needs met. And we get to teach them how to get their needs met in a healthy way, mostly by modeling, because 99% of what kids learn is caught, not taught. But then we also can have tools for redirection to just slow down, take a deep breath, do our nervous system stuff. We call it a pause button or a heart connector here at Fresh Start Family, and then decide on a path that is going to actually teach a life skill versus just react with a heavy hand that scares our kids into submission.
Oh my God, I love all of that so much. And it makes so much sense when you're talking about how when we grew up as kids, having a parent interact with us that way. And then now as a parent, the spilt milk becomes like this big thing. Like now I did not put the pieces together on that, first of all, and I did not put the pieces on
Yeah.
why I feel better lately, and which I now know is because of all the work I've been doing with Kate with the nervous system, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is why I used to scream about that all the time, and now I maybe don't because I'm reconditioning myself. Ugh.
It's true because I've experienced that too. Like reconditioning my nervous system around finances has absolutely reconditioned my nervous
Mm,
system around like entrepreneurship or parenting, right? Like it's all interconnected and the smoke alarm doesn't go off as much.
yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so great. This is so amazing. I know that we're almost at time here, and I could keep you on here forever because I'm like, I have more questions. Can you fix me? I don't need fixing. I
Exactly.
need guidance.
Yeah, I love that.
But this has been so, so great. But before we end this conversation, we talked a little bit about, the child who that danger kind of response there. How about for the strong-willed child? Can you give like just your top parenting tip for a parent who's
Yeah.
like, this child, I don't know if it's mine because of
Yeah.
the energy. What would be your top tip of like how they can navigate through that, not just for the child, but for themselves? Because I think we forget sometimes to parent the parent, right? Like, how can we care for the parent here and just
Yeah.
knowing that this too shall pass, maybe? I don't know. I don't have
Yeah.
strong-willed children, so, but I was a
Yeah.
strong-willed child, so.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, two things I think of just like, you know, hot tips that are going to take you a lifetime, but that's okay. That's just life. One, I mean, I guess not a lifetime, but it just takes a little bit of time to learn how to do this. But I'll give some strategic things too, or some tactical things. Is one, really to learn how to share the power with these children is essential. The like the classic like we have to do everything and if I step to the side that I'm losing power or that this kid's going to think they rule the house. It's just not accurate. We find that the kids who have a really strong desire to feel powerful, when they are in homes where they are consistently given the opportunity to feel powerful in healthy ways, they actually demand it out in the world less. And then, so I'm going to come back to that in a minute about strong-willed kids. The other side of the coin is you really got to learn how to compassionately discipline versus punish, because these kids have a natural tendency, like because they push buttons more, they do get in trouble more, meaning they're going to make the most mistakes. They are the ones that they're often very kinesthetic. They learn by doing. They learn by doing. They're the ones who are going to get up on stage and like say the darn thing versus be the one to sit on the sidelines. They're going to be the first one who jumps on the trampoline. Like they just learn by doing. So it's very, very important that we learn to discipline versus punish, because they also have a natural tendency to go to shame, and they're like allergic to shame, and it gets deep down buried within them. And we just want to give them a different experience. So with those two things said, I'm going to come back to the empowerment piece. The thing that parents of strong-willed kids want to remember is that most of the time the apple doesn't fall far. And so if you have a strong-willed child that you're seeing pushes back a lot, challenges authority, like really has a strong voice, goes for what they want in life, the chances are you or your partner are probably one of those people, right? And so a lot of us, though, because of the way we grew up when we made mistakes, when we pushed back, when we challenged authority, that was teed up as negative. That was like, that's why you have that phrase of, oh, you just wait. Look, you have a strong-willed kid. Now you're getting exactly
Mhm.
what you got. Or I forget the exact phrase
Yeah.
there, right? But it's like,
What goes around comes around.
what goes around comes around, taste of your own medicine.
Yeah.
And what I want everyone to understand is that most of us were not taught to feel really good about our strong-willedness growing up. So I am the strong-willed one in my family. My daughter is my spitting image. And it wasn't until I learned to fully love myself and like tame that inner critic, so to speak, until I learned how to shed shame and really reduce significantly, almost eliminate shame from my life, and think that something was wrong with me because I was the more I really go for stuff. I'm like all the things that if you look back 10 years ago, I would silently critique myself for. And so the thing is, when you're hard on yourself, you're going to be hard on your kids. And as soon as you learn to love yourself more and love the same traits that you have, that your child has, you'll start to be able to offer them more compassion and feel more relaxed sharing the power. And sharing the power, we teach a lot of empowerment prompting strategies in our work, but, a simple one is to be able to offer choices instead of compliance statements. So instead of like, put on your shoes now, a strong-willed child is going to push back on that. And then you just enter in all the classic hand-me-down stuff that makes you feel like crap when you lay your head on your pillow at night. Instead, you can just get used to like living with the language of choices with strong-willed kids. Like, hey, do you want to put your shoes on all by yourself, or do you need my help? Do you want to put them on now, or do you want to watch your show for 5 more minutes and then put on your shoes? We could riff for days on choices. And then also just putting them in charge and of things. So like making them president of the seatbelt in the car or CEO of music, right? Like these are like little things that is, if you give them a taste of leadership, they usually like their little shoulders relax and they come more to you versus like being repelled by what you're telling them to do. So questions or choices instead of compliance statements, like putting them in charge, giving them leadership positions, really honoring their point of view and using words like and instead of but. Like, I can see you're really upset and we still need to leave the park. Things like peaceful conflict resolution. These are all kind of examples of what we teach. And then as far as compassionate discipline goes, when they make a mistake, these kids, you just really want to form that relationship with, because that they are allergic to shame, but they're also allergic to hypocrisy. And so if there's any type of hypocrisy going on, like they will basically reject your teachings. And so you just want to draw closer to them with compassionate discipline, which is about teaching the life skill that they're missing versus like making them feel bad about what they've done, which we teach a bunch of different ways. And then being willing to look at your own modeling. And so if you're asking your child not to freak out and yell or hit when their sister is messing with their Legos, or you want to really clearly just have the humility, which Mother Teresa says is a superpower, basically in her own words, and, talks about how it can change the world. You just want to look at that and say, okay, if I'm not there yet, then it's just an opportunity for me to lean more into compassionate discipline and us learning together versus expecting this child to do what they haven't had a clear model of yet. So those are just some ideas. I don't know how much that helps, but, and just know you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. I mean, parenthood is, I believe, the hardest job on the planet. And it's such an invitation to deep healing and growth, which radiates out into all parts of your life, radiates out into your community when you accept the invitation and step into it.
I love that so much. So all of Wendy's contacts information is going to be in the show notes below. But if people are like, I need this work, I have a strong-willed child, where should they start?
Yeah. Come to our free learning bundle. It comes with a free workshop, freshstartfamilyonline.com/power struggles. With strong-willed kids, we talk a lot about how power struggles take families down. We fall into a lot of behavior that becomes kind of a stable misery cycle. You just think that you have to do this stuff every day in and day out. And by the time they're teenagers, you're just miserable. You don't have to stay there. We can help you get out of it. And we can help you see the light in your kid again. And to also know that you're not failing. You're not broken. You just are under-supported. So that free learning bundle comes with a free learning guide and a free workshop with me where you can ask questions. It's interactive. freshstartfamilyonline.com/power struggles. And then come find me on the podcast, which Kate is going to be on, the Fresh Start Family Show. We have episodes every single week with experts and authors. And sometimes I do solo episodes. Sometimes my husband joins me. It's really fun.
I love that. I just really want to emphasize that word that you used. Under-supported. Undersupported. I was like, it left my
Yeah.
head. Undersupported.
Yeah.
That is a really important one that I think so many women have to hear, is that, we've lost the art of community in many ways. And,
Yeah.
undersupported is a huge one for us to be able to thrive as parents. So yes, all of Wendy's contact information is going to be in the show notes below. Definitely check out her work and check out that free resource that she just mentioned. And Wendy, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been such a great conversation, so much fun. And I cannot wait to do part 2 with you in your podcast, where we'll go deep into menstrual cycle awareness and
Oh, I
parenting.
can't wait. With a 17-year-old who I want to teach that stuff to. I cannot wait to have you on the show, Kate. So thank you for this conversation. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you again. Are you excited about aligning to your cycle? If so, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and like the episode if it really resonated with you. Until next time, remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired.